Welcome back, everybody, to Conversations with Mother. We are glad that you tuned in for the first episode, and we are here today to delve further. So, how are you doing today first? That seemed like a very heavy sigh.
It's been a week.
It's been a week. I will agree.
It's been a heavy week. It was good to have a nice release dance last night.
Yes.
With my dog.
Step into your power.
Step into my power. It's been a week, but it wasn't a bad week. It was just a heavy week.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a heavy week. And I think the dance last night was very beneficial. You and I both woke up with we need to dance around a fire energy.
Yes. Release all this shit.
Yes. So if you tuned into the intro episode, you got to meet Peter and Tyler, but they are not going to be on every single episode. You'll get these two lovely faces every single episode, and we'll pull them in basically when we deem them necessary. No, I was kidding.
I know. Kind of like life.
Yeah, kind of like life. But today we are talking about what it means to come back to the table after hurt, distance, miscommunication, old family patterns. We're not just talking about like one family story. We're actually going to be using Mother's experience as kind of the doorway into these bigger conversations about family systems, about rupture and repair, boundaries, accountability, and what it actually takes for people to come back together differently and what that looks for everybody. So this isn't a conversation about being the perfect family, because I don't think the perfect family exists. And it's not about pretending everything is fixed. It's about what happens when a family has every opportunity to repeat the same old pattern, but starts choosing something different. And because it's just me and Mother today, I'm going to kind of take on a little bit of a new role. I'm going to be helping to kind of slow it down, ask questions, define things, pull out what listeners can actually use in daily life. So today we are coming back to the table. So I'm going to turn it over to you at this point. And what does that mean for you with coming back to the table?
Well, for me, like, first, when I say coming back to the table, I don't mean like, I don't know, we all like return to in my head, you know what I think of is like Thanksgiving, where like you're just anticipating the same shit happening. Every year, everybody's like, oh, it's holiday season, man, I'm just going to go back and Uncle so-and-so is going to talk about this and this person's going to bring this up and it's going to be really difficult. So I'm not talking about returning to the same family table with the same roles and the same old patterns. What I'm talking about is the fact that the table had to change. So the conversations had to change. The boundaries had to change. The way we listened had to change. The way I understood myself as a parent, it had to change. And the way the kids were like allowed to be adults or the human beings that they are. They're actual people with their own wants, needs, and oh my God, where'd that word go? Wants, needs, and I don't remember the word. It just sure went.
Train derailed, no survivors.
No, none.
You may come crawling back here in a little bit, but that's okay.
It's okay. What did they have? They have wants, needs, and desires.
Desires?
There we go.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I was going to be like, desires, maybe?
Freaking words, man. Why are they always escaping me? So eventually that table had to become big enough for, partners, chosen family, new identities, new boundaries, and a more honest version of who we all are. So yes, part of the story is about a rift between me and Tyler and how it came up at the same time every year and the adult children, but that's not where the meaning ends. So just because one part of a family system changes, what happens is that everybody in that system feels it. So a family system, and we'll go into this a little bit later, in that family system, everybody starts to feel those patterns. Partners feel it, chosen family feels it, the people who come in later in our lives feel it. And then there's that history, right? So we have a history, and then you're just walking into like, what the fuck is this? And that's why I don't want this episode to be like, oh, here's Michelle's family history. I want it to feel like, here's what I've learned from family repair and how it taught us how to be human. And being a human is messy.
Well, being a human is super messy. Super messy.
It is. And then it's so hard for somebody like me who's like, oh, I don't like mess. Let's put this all together.
I'm like, one of my red flags is letting my house look lived in. Okay. Like, I don't like mess either. So
it's just one of those things, it's not, and I want to be very, very clear. It's not about deciding who was right, who was wrong. It's about what happens when people who love each other still hurt each other. They still misunderstand each other. They grow apart or get pulled into patterns that they don't know how to stop. And we all get stuck there at some point. And I also want to say this very clearly. We are not saying that every family should reconcile. Sometimes distance is necessary. Some boundaries have to stay firm, and some relationships are not safe to return to. But what we are talking about today is our experience of how we repaired, what helped us, and what I had to own as a parent, what changed in the system, and what we're still learning.
I think that is a distinction that matters, because repair doesn't mean like going back to how things were. Sometimes repair means building a relationship that can hold more truth than it used to. So why don't we start with the actual riff? Riff. We're going to riff. Riff.
Please, God,
with
no.
a T. I've only had about 4 cups of coffee today. But so what was it, one big break, or was it more layered than that?
I think it's really layered, right? Because like as a parent, you have kids develop at there's different stages of development. And this is going to sound bad, but when kids are younger, they're more malleable, right? And it's easy to be like, hey, like, you don't know what you're doing. You got to listen to me. And it's easy to forget that we always want each individual person to have their own autonomy. And we want kids to be able to feel like they have a say in something. I didn't grow up like that. I grew up in an Asian household where it was my responsibility to serve the adults in my house. And I should be really thankful to them because they kept me alive. They did their best.
It's a lovely sentiment, isn't it?
So when we talk about like the rift in my family, I don't think it was that like one, like all of a sudden it was just like a clean break, especially because like I said, there's different developmental stages. I've always had kids at home. I've never not had kids at home too. So it was very layered, and there were different seasons where people left. Tori went to the army, Juliet was still at home, but Juliet was working, going to school, and was out of the house a lot more. Tori was gone, and then it was just, Jonathan, Juliet, and William at home, and that was different. And there's all of these things that happened that were just those different layers of separation. And when they came back, it was like we needed to try again, where sometimes people needed space, and sometimes we had to figure out what home meant when they came home. And then some of that was a normal life transition, right? So you just kind of get used to it. People grow, people leave home. And it's just one of those things where it's like, you come back to something totally different. Tori was in the army. Tori went to Korea, and they came back, and they created relationships outside of our family system. And so did we. And now we have to come back together. And some of it was really emotional. Some of it wasn't. Some of the like rifts were not just like, I'm leaving because life is taking me somewhere else. Some of it was like, I don't know how to stay connected to this family because I don't know who I am in this family anymore. Roles get challenged, and I don't know who I am in this family, and I don't know if I can still be okay in this family. And that was hard.
Yeah.
I feel like as a parent, you want home to feel safe, and you want to believe that your child can come home, and they'll come home if they want to, and home should be a safe place. But I had to understand that home, it wasn't only a place, it's an emotional experience. And if emotional patterns still feel unsafe or overwhelming, then coming home is not that simple.
That's so true. Like that feels important because a lot of people hear distance and they immediately think rejection. I know I've battled with that myself, with distance coming and making it feel like rejection. But sometimes distance is not, I don't love you. Sometimes distance is, I don't know how to stay close to you without losing myself.
Yes, 100%. We have to honor that. It's something that, we need to honor, that people sometimes need space, and that's okay. It's hard to accept, but it's okay.
Well, before we go too far, I know that you have an experience like with more of your family, like in Hawaii and stuff like that. Before we go too far, can we define the family systems? I feel like this is a good place to put this. Can we find the family systems for people who have never heard that term before?
Yeah. So family systems theory is something that we use in therapy. And this is not therapy, disclaimer. This is me as a mom, as a person. My therapy life has nothing to do with anything that happens in this room. I just happen to have the tools in my bag to use. So when we talk about family systems theory, it's basically the idea that a family is not just a bunch of like separate people having separate problems. It's a system. We affect each other. We react to each other. We fall into patterns together. So instead of asking like, who is the problem? Family systems asks like, what patterns are happening between us? And that matters because sometimes the pattern becomes like this big thing, and it's way bigger than any just one person because we're all a part of it. And so it can be like one person gets defensive, and I didn't mean to point at you. God, what the fuck?
Well,
you don't get very defensive.
I don't. I truly don't. So, I will defend, but I don't get defensive.
So one person gets defensive. No, pointing people out there. One person gets defensive. Another person will shut down. You can't handle it, right? Another person will push against everything that is said. And another person will just avoid it altogether. And then someone becomes the fixer. I have to fix everything. And someone becomes the problem that they have to fix. Someone can become the one who leaves. And suddenly everyone is reacting to the pattern instead of hearing the hurt that's underneath it. And so like one family system model talks about like connection and flexibility and communication as major parts of family functioning. I mean, communication, flexibility, come on now. Of course, those things are. Connection is always a really big part of like being together in a system. So in plain language, Healthy families need enough closeness to stay connected, enough flexibility to adapt when life changes, and enough communication to work through the conflict instead of just repeating it. Also helps if you can identify a pattern. I'm
like really good at identifying patterns and picking up small shit like that.
That's the neurospiciness.
Spiciness. So for somebody listening, the first practical question is not only like who hurt who, but also what keeps happening. Like what is the loop? Like who explains, who shuts down, who fixes, who leaves, who gets blamed, or who goes quiet, and who becomes responsible for everybody else's feelings. Because once you can name that loop, you have a better chance of interrupting that cycle that keeps happening.
Yep.
That's my kind of takeaway on it, and for the listeners as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a system.
Yeah. Well, and then we all know how we love to get in these cycles, and cycles become spirals, and spirals become... That's a whole nother episode. Spirals and cycles. But so once the pattern was there, how were people communicating inside of it? Because it sounds like the communication itself became part of the hurt.
How were people communicating? We weren't. I mean, if you think about it, like every disruption in a family literally could probably be traced back to the fact that we weren't communicating or not communicating effectively, right? So like one of the hardest things for me to admit is that I was defensive. As a parent, it was like when I brought things up, I would get defensive, and I feel like I always felt misunderstood. And I wanted to explain why I did the things the way I did it, and I wanted to explain what I was going through in that moment. What I meant, and maybe why I made certain choices. And it was like I just wanted to explain why things happened the way it did. And that's a very human response, right? Like that's kind of how hey, why are you doing this? Because this, that, and the other, we're defensive. We're explaining it away. And when somebody tells you that you hurt them, especially your children, there is this immediate instinct also to protect yourself. You want to say like, oh, that's not what I meant. Or, let me explain. You don't understand what I was dealing with. I was young. I was a young parent. I was going through a lot. I wanted that to be known. But what I've
heard all of those. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but I have heard all of those.
Gee, I'm sorry. No, like for real, I'm sorry. It's hard. That was the part I think that was the part that was the hardest to admit.
Yeah.
Is to sit back and be like, why am I being defensive? And that's what I had to realize, that every time I explained myself first, I was putting myself back in the center of the conversation. Yep, absolutely. It was about me. And here I am, my children were trying to tell me how they were hurt, what they were feeling. Hey, this is what you did. This is how it impacted me. And I was responding with my own discomfort. And so I had to stop defending my intentions long enough to understand the impact that I actually had on them. So, like I said, it wasn't easy. That's probably like the hardest part of being a parent.
I was going to say being a mother.
I mean,
it's a hard thing to have to step back from.
Yeah. My kids, I always have this conversation, like my kids didn't ask to be here. They really didn't. They, and I feel like it's my job to take care of them. And in that moment, I wasn't taking care of them. I was taking care of myself. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't just disregard my feelings, because my feelings were real too. And my perspective mattered too, right? But in those moments, repair and reconciliation, or just accountability and acknowledgement to my kids, required me to set my thoughts and feelings down for a minute. They're there, they're still there. We're going to come back for you. Set them down for a minute so that their experience could have the floor. And they deserved that. They really did. And I know that it didn't mean that I was like abandoning myself. Like I said, I'm going to come back to you. It meant I was choosing not to make my children carry my defensiveness. While they were trying to tell me already how they were hurt. So here, you're hurt. Oh, but also like, here, carry my shit too.
Let me lay this at your feet as well. Yes. Yeah.
And you don't realize as a parent that you're doing that in the moment. And you don't realize as a person that you're doing that in the moment, and in the thick of it. So I had to learn how to listen from one human being to another. I'm not just a parent trying to correct my child or correct the narrative of what was going on. And I wasn't trying, I needed to not be the person that was like trying to justify or defend my intentions. I was just hearing another human being that I love saying, hey, when this happened, it hurt, and it hurt a lot. And I had to sit back and I had to say, you know what? I'm sorry that happened. Yeah, I did do that. And I'm glad you're telling me. Thank you for trusting me enough and being vulnerable enough to tell me. Because now, guess what I have? I have feedback. And because I have feedback, I have the chance to do better, to be better, to make the changes that I needed to make. And I think that was one of the biggest energetic shifts for me, is that I had to stop treating their pain like an accusation. And I think that we do that a lot in conversations, right? So instead of treating when somebody is saying, hey, you know what, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. And not being like, what do you mean, bro?
Bro.
Bruh.
What do you mean, bruh?
What do you mean, bruh? But like, treat it like information.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's one of the best things that I learned in school too, is feedback, right? It's information that can help me love them better, that can help me do better, that can help me understand them better, so I could love them better.
And that's such an important moment to kind of like slow down on, because I think a lot of people get stuck right there. So like when someone says like, you hurt me, our first instinct is often, but it didn't mean to. So what helped you move from like, let me explain myself, to let me understand you?
Oh God. Okay, so like logic.
Like logic.
Well, so you think about this, and like, I mean, the biggest thing for me was like finding knowledge. Pick a fucking book up, read it, like anything. And so there's really good research around this. Like, feeling heard is not just like somebody sitting quietly while you talk. Can you imagine? Like, I'm just sitting here and you're talking, but in my head, I'm like, I have to do this today, and I have to do this today, and oh, did I do that today?
While you're pouring your emotions out to me, let me go over my to-do list in
Yes,
my head.
Absolutely. So communication is good, like clear and effective, like outward communication. But there's also like the good listening part. So good listening helps people feel understood, validated, and cared for. And like, so that's why when we teach communication in even a communications class or in therapy, it's active listening and effective or clear, concise communication. Because when people feel understood, they usually don't have to defend themselves as hard. They don't have to keep fighting to prove that their pain is real. And so we can sit back and be like, oh, I see that you're hurt. And that's really important because a lot of family conflict is not only about the original hurt, right? It's about the second hurt, which happens when somebody tries to share their pain and then they get dismissed and they get brushed off or corrected or minimized or even argued with I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
That's an argument. So sometimes, the repair begins when somebody, like one person just says, I'm not here to argue with your expertise or your expertise. I mean, seriously, what is an experience? That was the word that I was looking for. I'm not here to argue with your experience or your expertise because you're an expert in yourself.
That's true.
I'm here to understand it.
Valid. So for listeners, here's a practical place to start. The next time someone tells you that you hurt them, I forget where the camera's at. Camera's up there. Next time you hurt them, before you explain your intention, try asking one question first. Can you help me understand what that felt like for you? And that question does not mean you agree with everything. It does not mean your side does not matter, but it means you're making room for their experience before defending your own. So, but something else that came up in the family story was distance. So people leaving, taking space, not coming home, not talking for a while. I'm currently going through that. And I think that's tricky because space can be healthy, but it can also become avoidance as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you're going through that. That it sucks. It's a hard thing to go through.
Yeah.
But sometimes we learn things in that space.
And just to share a little bit more on that, like that's the distance for me right now is avoidance.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I'm at with it.
At least you can name it.
I can name it. It is moved 8 hours away. So
that was not intentional.
No, it just this felt like coming home, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it definitely, that's where the distance is for avoidance. But thank you for saying that and hearing that, because it's deconstructing and reconstructing, and I'm in the throes of it right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, distance. Back to distance of what you were saying, though.
Well, what happened though? Did things get really overwhelming?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. So one of the patterns in our family was we would get super overwhelmed. Everybody would get super overstimulated, and distance became a coping skill. Right. So sometimes it looked like physical distance. Sometimes it looked like emotional distance. And sometimes it looked like not talking for a little while. And sometimes it looks like moving somewhere else instead of going back home.
Moving away.
Yeah. And I want to be careful with that because sometimes space is healthy. Like I said, it's healthy. Sometimes distance is absolutely necessary. And we need room to like regulate, think, be a freaking individual that's not a part of this whole system where we keep having that same pattern loop. And that's okay. But there's a difference between taking space and using distance as the only way to survive a relationship. So for us, sometimes the space helped people like take a breath, find themselves, but it also meant we didn't always repair what happened. So it's just sitting there. So we would separate, cool down, and we would avoid the worst of it. And then the same pattern would be waiting for us later. I know you shared a little bit about what was going on with you and how taking space right now, yes, it's avoidance. And that's fine. Like I said, sometimes taking that space to avoid that, like that chaos that just like over and over again, when you take that second to breathe on your own without all that noise in the back of your head, it's like, oh, I can finally have a thought to myself. And one of the kids, Tori, shared something that really stayed with me. They had been journaling, they were reading, they were doing their own tarot card reading. And they talked about how with some of the cards that they pulled up, it made them realize that the space gave them enough room to step outside of the family picture, like you're in it. And you step outside of it and you can look at it instead of being in it. And they were able to see people differently. So not just as roles, not just as mom or the person that hurt me, but as people having like their own experiences too. And that doesn't ever excuse the hurt, and it didn't erase anything, but it created enough distance for empathy to become possible. And so that's the complicated thing about space, right? Sometimes space is where avoidance lives, but sometimes space is where the reflection starts. And finding that third path, you can find this place to not continue those patterns of toxicity and go back into the same cycles that you were in. But without that space, you would have never seen that path.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at everybody else over here.
And that's kind of the space that I'm currently in right now, is being able to remove, as you said, and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And see these individuals as individuals and not the roles that they've been given since I was born.
Yeah.
And so it is helping me to kind of break out of that kind of path in that cycle. And that feels like the difference space with like having space with a purpose versus space's disappearance.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not creating the space's disappearance. Space with a purpose sounds like I need time to calm down, think, and come back to this differently. Like, disappearance sounds like I'm gone. We're never going to talk again about this.
And I'm not going to think about it.
And I'm not going to think about it. And we're going to just toss it to the side, and all that good stuff. But that's not where I'm at. Like, space as the other way of breaking out of that cycle of how do I come back to the table differently.
Yeah. I honestly feel like that space was probably the most painful space.
Yeah.
Because it's like you sit there and you're like, home existed. My family existed. My kids existed. That relationship was kind of like not really there anymore. And it just didn't always feel emotionally safe to come back to. And I know it felt that way for the kids too, because they've said it, and there were just these moments where like the questions underneath everything was not just like my kids going, where am I sleeping when I come home? Or where am I living when we're done here? Or the question for them came up of like, where do I feel safe landing right now? And they had to land in other spots besides home. And that's hard to say out loud as a parent, but I had to take the time to understand that if the emotional pattern still feels unsafe and confusing and overwhelming, coming home is not that simple. And I had to just be okay with like your part, your part of your path that you are on right now. It's so hard as a parent to be like, you'll find yourself.
And you know what? With creating this space and the distance between me and the family system that I was brought up in, like I'm realizing that from their side right now. One of the questions that I've had to ask, and anybody who's listening, a very useful question could be that, like, am I taking space so that I can return differently, or am I taking space so that I never have to repair? And I'm choosing, at first we all want to run to choice number 2, the latter one, so that we never have to repair because it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
But, I'm taking space so that I can return differently. And if you are the person on the other side of distance, Another question might be, how do I make this relationship safer to come back to without chasing, pressuring, or demanding closeness before repair has to happen? I know me personally, when somebody comes to me like that, it makes me want to create even more space. Like, how do I pressure you back into you can't.
Yeah.
You just have to let this other person have the space so that they can feel safer coming back.
Which is what I had to do with my kids.
Yeah.
It was like I caught on.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, oh, you need space. And the funny thing is that in that space, I was able to see my own pattern. And I don't know if it was because like I am a fixer, but it's more of like, I want you to be able to come home.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel comfortable here. So I had to look at my own pattern of trying to always be the solution. So in my mind, I'm like, let me make things better for everybody. You know, like I'm trying to hold the family together. I'm the glue. You know, you always hear that like, oh, grandma, she was the glue that held the family together. And then when grandma died, like the shit hits the fan. No, it's because nobody could say shit in front of grandma. And nobody dared say, don't you say that in front of your grandma. She's going to have a heart attack and die. So, and that's the worst part, right? So like, you're trying to like prevent the next explosion, but you're the one that's like preventing it or like making it happen by like trying not to prevent it.
Yeah.
So that's the painful part about being the fixer. And you have to recognize that is that when things don't get better, people can still experience you as part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so internally, when you're thinking like, I'm trying to help, or, you know, if I do this, it'll get better. Externally, other people may be feeling controlled and unheard, pressured.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to make you feel guilty.
It's been a while since I heard from you. That's my personal favorite.
Oh, God. What was the line we talked about the other day on somebody's phone from their mother?
Oh, I don't mean to guilt you.
Yeah, it was. I don't mean to guilt you into anything, but I think you should do this. ... I'm part of the problem. Yeah. I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want to make you feel bad. Okay, why did I have to say that in the freaking first place?
That just like alerts me to like, great, I'm about to feel like shit.
Yes, yes. No, that's exactly like, that's literally the whole motivation. I need to be the fixer. So I need you to understand that you need to play this role that I've continued to put you in.
Yeah.
And so that's hard. That's hard. And that's where like language matters. The things that you say, the things that come out of your mouth, it matters. So there's a difference between saying, I am the problem, and saying, ooh, shit, I'm contributing to this pattern.
I'm contributing.
I see. I'm part of the problem. So, and that matters in a way where one creates shame. So I'm the problem. That feels icky. Oh, shoot. You know what? I'm enabling this to happen. I'm sitting here and I'm continuing to contribute to this pattern that keeps happening. And then responsibility of, oh, I'm contributing to that gives us somewhere else to go. And it gives us somewhere else to move into.
Well, and I think that brings us to one of the clearest examples of something actually changing, which I believe it was Tori said last Christmas. Because around that time there was unusual tension, and based on history, people were waiting for the old pattern to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So last Christmas was a really big marker for us. I think that, in all honesty, the Christmas before was a big marker for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that pattern stopped that Christmas, but Tori and the older kids were not home that Christmas. They didn't make it home that Christmas. You know, their shit happens, right? Holidays are a really hard time. And it ended up being where there was a time of year where Tyler felt a certain way and things would happen around that. And, you know, like at the end of this year, we'll have been together for 13 years. So this will be the 13th Christmas or 12th Christmas that I've had to brace myself for impact. I don't think I'm going to brace myself for that impact this time. And that was what they finally noticed when they came home last Christmas, where in the past, this was, you know, a time where there was a lot of tension between me and Tyler. I'm waiting, right? It's going to happen. And usually there was arguing. There's always, you know, the other things that are underlying under the surface of what was going on. And maybe we can get into that later with Tyler here, but our history, Christmas could be a little bit volatile. And it made sense that I wasn't the only one bracing for that impact. It was everybody else too. Mm-hmm. And so it's like our body, you know, our bodies remember it, whether we remember it or not, our bodies remember it. And so it's like everybody's sitting around like, okay, this is the part where everything explodes and the shit hits the fan. And then the strangest thing happened. We're all home together and it didn't happen in that same way. And we didn't repeat the same cycle. Mm-hmm. And it was this like light bulb moment for, I know Tori, I'm not sure about Juliet, but like, I know it was this light bulb moment for Tori of like, oh shit, maybe things are changing. Mm-hmm. Pattern's not the same.
Mm. I think I am still waiting for that.
Yeah, and I hope you get it
with my side of it, because I just know that, I mean, I brace for impact at almost every family function. Mm-hmm. I brace at impact at almost every single phone call from back home. Mm-hmm. Because there's always drama, trauma, guilt, shame around almost every conversation that I have from back home. So, but from where I sit, that's such a big deal, because it's one thing to talk about change when everything is calm. And it's a complete other thing to be inside the tension and realize that the old script is available, but people are not reading from it the same way.
Yeah.
And that's where you can see kind of almost in real time where change becomes real in that moment.
Mm-hmm. And it's also where you start to feel safer. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's not that everything was fixed and it's not that everything is perfect, but now there's like this new evidence that your brain has, and evidence that maybe we could have the tension without a full-on knockdown, drag out fight. And it could just be conflict with resolution. Maybe we could be upset, but still stay connected in that anger or in that being upset, whatever feelings that we're having. And somebody can go through something hard without everybody becoming responsible for like scrambling around and try to carry that for them, you know? And it's like, these things are happening without the really big things happening. And I think for us, it was like, these things could happen and everybody can hold space for them to happen without it becoming a huge explosion.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Can we explain the body, please? Because people say that my body remembers, but what does that mean in real terms? Like in real life, what does that mean to you? I know I have my experience with it.
Yeah.
Like my body remember old patterns, being in a healthier relationship now than I was in my last relationship. But what does that mean, like my body remembers?
Well, and so like, so that's what we talk about, like where anything that I reference will be put in the comments so that you can reference it yourself. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I have mixed feelings about that book. But when we say like our bodies are keeping the score, what it means is that repeated stress teaches the body to anticipate what usually happens next. People will see themselves and it'll be like I was feeling really yucky yesterday and I was feeling really sad yesterday. I totally forgot. Jenna passed away yesterday. And so, you know, it's been what, a year? And my best friend from not even from high school. Yeah, we were in high school. That's a long time ago. I'm old. I'm not going to even say how many years ago, but we've been friends since I was 13, you know, and she passed away last year. And I literally like couldn't figure out what was going on. Then I saw her sister post something and I'm like, oh, that's it. Because our bodies will remember even before our brain does. Yeah. So in stress research, right, there's a concept called allostasis. And in simple terms, it's just the way that like the body tries to prepare for what it thinks is coming. And so my body was preparing me for sadness that came, you know, that was a big sadness. I think I cried in bed for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And so when you have repeated things and repeated conflicts, cut off, emotional explosions, the body starts to brace before anything has even happened. And so that's why a calm moment can still feel really unsafe because your body is anticipating something else happening. You're like, oh, or your body's like, uh-oh, it's calm.
Mm-hmm. Where's the other shoe?
Yep. Oh, it's all.
Where the hell is that shoe?
And the other shoe is gonna drop. Yep, absolutely. So when the explosion didn't happen in the same way for my family, that mattered, right? So that family system gave our bodies different information. We were creating new neural pathways. It gave us a new experience, and that conflict does not always have to become a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So for me, yeah. I'm like trying to wrestle. Is it in my own brain? So creating those new neural pathways, that's a big thing, right? Like, because it's like, oh, my thought process is different now, or like we as a family as a whole, we're different now. And it's the fact that, you know, like my supervisor loves to say, we can do hard things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's okay, but it means we can do hard things. And that was living through that moment of discomfort and through a moment where the old version, we're waiting for it to blow everything up. But now we're realizing, we have different choices. Amazing. We have free will, right? So then that's where, like, for us, like, that the repair became real, is that when the old pattern had a chance to happen, but we all chose something different.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing on healing journeys. And whenever you're starting out, you're trying to figure things out. You're trying to repair yourself, your family, or whatever it is, of why when you get into these healthy moments, why it feels so tricky. Because nothing's going to trigger you more in life than healthy environments and healthy relationships.
Yes, 100%.
Because your body remembers.
You're like, wait, what?
So, well, and that's the thing, is like, so for like the listeners, like, the sign that things may be shifting might not be some huge dramatic thing. It might be smaller than that. It's like, instead of yelling, somebody pauses.
Yeah.
You know, and like someone asks a question instead of assuming. I know that's where I'm at. Instead of just assuming now, like, I start asking questions. You know, someone takes space, but they come back. Like, that's the difference. They don't just leave. Someone says, I'm I'm being defensive, but I'm still listening, you know, or like I need a boundary, but I'm not disappearing.
Yep.
Like that's a new one for me.
Yep.
We're going to get into boundaries later on. But sometimes
that'll be a 10 series episode.
No shit. But sometimes the sign of repair is not that everything feels good, but it's that the old disaster just doesn't fully come to fruition, or it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and your body's like, what the hell? Like,
because you just spent all that time anticipating it.
Yeah.
It's like yesterday there was an incident where the balloon popped. A balloon popped. But I literally was like watching it happen, and I was like, and then it popped, and I was like, oh God, I'm still scared. But what happens if the balloon didn't pop? I'm still sitting there going, in the meantime. It's just, it's the anticipation of like, oh shit, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Fuck another shoe.
Yeah. That damn shoe better be Manolo Blahnik. Just saying, or something.
Something nice.
Give me a Louboutin or something. But anyway, so let's talk about like repair directly. So because old pattern not happening is one part of it, but there's also had to be like accountability, boundaries, you know, there's a whole different kind of table. It's no longer just wood, it's metal. Like, you know what I mean?
It's flexible.
It's flexible. You can fold it up.
Yep. It's a folding table. It's like our out-of-leaf table.
Yes.
Yes. So like when we say like rupture and repair, right? It means that break in connection. And it can be a fight, it can be a betrayal, it can be a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. But to understand it, to take responsibility where we need to, and rebuild that trust through change behavior is where it's at, right? So we have to change that behavior. Mm-hmm. And so repair is not one perfect apology. It's repeated evidence that something is changing. So it's like lasting change. Mm-hmm. And so accountability.
Don't we all love that damn word?
Yeah. So accountability meant for me that I didn't have to hate myself. Because you kind of want to, where you're like, man, I fucking did that. Like, that sucks. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of like try to beat yourself up. And you're like, oh man, how stupid was I for doing that? But it meant that I just had to be honest enough to see where I caused the hurt. And then brave enough to do something different. And I had to learn that an apology is not a courtroom defense. It's not where I try to prove that I had good intentions going into something. Mm-hmm. A real apology says, oh, I see that hurt you. And I am willing to understand and take accountability for my part in that. And I am so willing to make the changes in how I show up. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest part is like hearing somebody say that and being like, oh shit, I hurt you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for giving me that information. How do I make sure that that doesn't happen again? And then, comes the part where we're living differently after the apology. It's that lasting change, because words can open the door, but behavior and actions is what builds that trust.
And rebuilds over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that also can apply beyond your adult child relationships too. It can extend to partners, to friendships, to the chosen family, or anyone trying to belong inside a family or a system that has history. I guess you could say, because when someone enters a family system,
you're like, hey,
you're not entering into a blank room. That's a personal experience. You're entering a room where there's old stories, there's old roles, there's loyalties, old hurts, old ways people learned to protect themselves. So repair is not just about the original people in the rupture either. It's also about whether the family can become safe enough for new people to belong without being pulled into the old pattern. Again, hi, it's me on the problem.
Yeah.
It's me.
It's not a problem.
No, I know.
Right. And so like, that's why when I talk about my family, it does include you, Peter, Ian, everybody. And even though like the original rupture was between me, Tyler, Matthew, and the kids, the repair changed our family system. It changed our table. If our table stays rigid, there's no room for my adult children to become adults. There's no room for our partners. And then there's no room for chosen family because we haven't done the repair. Yeah, we could have lived together, but it would have been so different.
Yeah.
It would have been tumultuous. Damn,
that's a good word.
Yeah.
Tumultuous.
And I feel like it just makes room for everybody. So all of that change that happened, all of the repair that happens, it just makes room for everybody to be their honest self, their true self, their authentic self. And coming back to the table didn't mean like forcing everybody to come back into their old seats. It meant like the table got bigger and it changed how we sit together. Yeah. And I think that that's a good thing. I really do feel like it's more flexible. And then come boundaries. One of the biggest things that we all have to learn, I was going to say had to learn. We did. We all had to learn it.
Yeah.
But we still have
currently
to learn.
Learning.
Yeah. I don't think it ends.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that boundaries is one of those things where it'll always be a challenge to be like, oh, wait, you're not going to show up if I do this. And that's valid, but I want you to show up. So, and that's just it. Like, right. So when we learn that boundaries are not the end of a relationship or like a do or don't, in some ways, boundaries were what made the relationship possible again. A boundary, and we'll go into this later too, because a boundary is not, you have to do what I want. You have to do what I expect. A boundary is, this is what I can participate in, and this is what I can't participate in if we want this relationship to stay healthy. So for our family, boundaries help reduce resentment. They help people stop pretending that they were okay when they were not okay. It helped us to stop making closeness be that we had to have unlimited access to each other, where I could I don't want to see any of you. Close my door and everybody not be like, oh my God, she hates me.
Yeah. That kind of reflects back on creating space a little bit.
Yes.
And this connects to differentiation, right?
Yeah.
So can we define that in, I don't know, normal person words?
So I know. You're like, I know where you're tracking, but does everybody else?
Right.
So when we go back to like the family systems language, right? So differentiation basically means it's like dialectics, right? Dialectical behavioral therapy, dialectics. Two things can exist at once. I can love you And I can stay connected to you without abandoning myself. And low differentiation can look like everyone is absorbing each other's emotions and everybody is reacting and everybody is feeling responsible for everyone else. And everyone is needing like the other person to agree in order to feel okay. But healthy differentiation means that we can all be different. Differentiation, right? And it means we can stay connected while we have our own thoughts and feelings and our own identities. And that's where that like autonomy comes in, right? So, and that's where boundaries help. And you know, I can care about you without becoming swallowed by you. I can be okay with listening to you and not feeling like I need to take that all on to myself. It's not my responsibility. I'm just here to listen and understand and empathize. I can need space and shut my door without disappearing forever. I'll come back, I promise. And I can be upset and still stay connected to you. I can be mad. Like, you know, when I get mad at Tyler, I'm like, fuck you. Why'd you make you mad? Why are you making me mad at you? You're my best friend. Now I have nobody to hang out with. You know?
Yeah, you can't go in and close your door for too long on me. I have abandonment issues, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's make it really kind of practical, like before we close, because someone listening might be thinking, okay, this sounds good, but what do I actually do with this in my own family? So can we maybe give them a few starting points? Not the perfect formula, because I don't think there is one, but kind of a place to begin.
Right. And so like, this is, you know, like any place to begin. How do you begin? It's, you got to name it to tame it, right? So you got to name that pattern. We can recognize the pattern, but if you're not naming it, you're still like asking who's wrong instead of, what keeps happening? Why does this keep happening? Get curious. I always say it. Get curious. Do we argue and then avoid each other? Does one person explain while the other one shuts down? Does somebody take on the role of a fixer every time we have an argument? Is somebody always the problem? Does everyone wait for like the same explosion? So you can't interrupt a pattern that you refuse to name. You've got to name it.
Well, and also the thing is, like, secondly, pause the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pause the defense before you explain your intention. Like, try to understand the impact first. And that can sound like, I want to explain my side, but I'm going to listen first.
Yeah.
You know, what did that feel like for you? You know, that one sentence, trying to get somebody's perspective, that one sentence can change the whole temperature of the conversation.
You just got curious.
Yeah, you just got curious. What did that feel like for you?
Yep. Because you know what your intention was. How did it land? What was the impact, right?
Yeah.
So we can, like, thirdly, we'll like, you know, once we get rid of the defensiveness, we can take space to think about things. It's okay to like not immediately react to something, because that space can be healthy as long as there's a way back. And so when we take that space, it can help people regulate, it can help them reflect, and it can help them like stop saying things that we don't mean, because we've always been there. You know, all of us have been there where we're like in the middle of a conversation. We're like, no, fuck you. You're the one that's a fucking asshole, not me. And it's like, oh.
You're like, dang it, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah, I'm totally being a bitch right now.
Yeah.
So if space becomes a permanent avoidance, you know, the rupture never gets repaired. But the healthy version of that can sound like, I need some space to calm down. I'm not abandoning this conversation. It's like me with my feelings. I put them down, but I was like, hey, I'm coming back. you know? And it's like, I'm not abandoning this conversation. I want to come back when I can actually listen and understand.
Well, and that would go into the next step, which would be to set the boundaries to protect the connection. Like, a boundary doesn't have to be this dramatic announcement so much as like, hey, while you're still yelling, I can't have this conversation.
Yeah.
Because that's not something that I do. I need for us to slow this down.
Yep.
Bring it down. I'm willing to talk about it, but not through yelling and insults. That's a big kicker for me. So it's basically like, I need time to answer, or I need time before I answer that. So it's not the punishment aspect of it. Like, I'm not stepping away to punish you. You know, there's just conditions that make sustainable closeness possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so if we look at that in a big picture, it's our way of looking for a different choice, right?
Yeah.
So most families don't repair everything like all at once. We're not like, oh, come on, let's deconstruct all of this and then we'll just put it back together in a better way right now. There's going to be little things here and there. And sometimes that repair begins with just one old pattern. When that has a chance to happen and one person does something differently, you know, and it's somebody finally was like, "What? Hold on, I need to take a second. I need to think about this." Or like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I made you feel that way." God, I mean, like, really, that validation of like just somebody saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way."
Yeah.
Taking that responsibility and also taking my feelings into consideration. That's a big one, right? So it's one apology, one boundary, one moment of like staying present when you would normally be like, I'm checking out. So that's how your system starts getting new information, you know, like take the fucking defensiveness out of it, create those boundaries, do all the things that you need to do to change the pattern, name it to tame it first. You have to know what it is before you can even start to do all the other things.
Well, like you said, you can't throw it all out there all at once because you're going to get in your hyperfixation, you're going to get burnt out, and then you're going to have shit all in the middle of the room, and you're not going to want to put it away. So
that never happens.
No, never. So the takeaway is like, don't go fix your whole damn family by Tuesday.
Yes.
It's notice the pattern, you know, pause that defense and take purposeful, words are hard, purposeful space and set one clear boundary and choose a different response.
Yeah. That
would be basically the take. That's where the repair starts to kind of become real.
Yeah.
At that point. So where are we now? Not in a perfect way, but in a real way. Like, what does repair look like now?
Girl, I don't think anything in our family will ever look perfect. Okay.
No. We're going to remove that word from our
vocabulary. Yeah. No, nothing is ever going to be perfect. Perfect is boring. Okay. So for like current reality, right? This is where we're at now. We're not telling a story of like, we figured it all out. We figured it all out. We're still in the middle of the work, all of it. Like and that's why I said, I wonder if it'll ever end. There's still uncomfortable conversations. Conversations are always going to be uncomfortable because they're change. We still have boundaries though. We're allowed to make them. And I feel like now that we can create those boundaries, people can sit back and go, oh, hold on, I need a second. And we can do that. And we listen better and we take responsibility and we are more aware of the pattern. We see it happening because we named it. We were like, oh, this is a pattern. And we're more willing to say, hey, you know what? That hurt. And I think that everybody in this house is more willing to hear because they feel heard as well. And so when we say, I didn't mean to hurt you, and I can also see what I did. So we're learning how to hold more than one truth at a time. You know, it's that I can still love you when you're far away from me. Okay, sorry. I digress. That's a good
brain.
It's a good song though. It's a girl song. It's a girl song.
Well, squirrel brain.
But I can still love you and still need a boundary. I can understand you even when you did something, and I can still acknowledge that it hurt me, and so can you. And I can be accountable without collapsing into shame, because that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because you beat yourself up over it.
The shame bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we can do better. You know, we can be better and also know, like I said 1,000 times, there's still work to do.
Yeah.
It never ends.
Well, that comes back to family resilience. You know, I mean, family resilience does not mean that a family never struggles. The family resilience means that a family can adapt and communicate and, you know, make meaning, reorganize, and keep moving through, you know, the hard things together.
That's where like that comes in of like the OCD of like, oh no, everything looks perfect. Look it, it's perfect. No, for us, like for me, what resilience doesn't look like is pretending that the cracks are not there, or that the mess is not there. It looks like being honest about it. We're lived in.
Yeah.
You know, we're not this spotless house. We are lived in. And it looks like, you know, for us, it can look like sitting down, telling the truth, listening better, apologizing. Yay, we're really good at that. Setting boundaries, trying again. And when you come full circle with this, it's coming back to, when we say coming back to the table, it doesn't mean returning to the same table with the same rules. It means building a table where more truth can fit.
Yeah.
Because we avoid that a lot. And where more boundaries can fit too. And we avoid that a lot because when somebody sets a boundary, it means that they're not going to meet you where you want them to. And making room for more people. I feel like when we heal ourselves, it means there is a bigger space for love. There's a space that love can fit into when we make that room. And that, I feel like our table became big enough for adult children instead of just like, you're my kids, right? And it became a space for them to have their own voice and to bring their partners in and to feel like they belong, and big enough for chosen family, because there's more than just my family, right? But it also makes space for that discomfort, and it also makes space for us to repair the things that happen.
Yeah. Well, and that's the heart of it. I mean, it's not just repair, is not just going back. It's making relationships honest enough that people can finally show up as who they are now. That's the heart of it right there. So,
you know, maybe the point is not that like we never break, we never fall apart. Maybe, like I said, it's being able to acknowledge that the cracks in our surface are actually there.
Yeah.
And we're able to like sit with each other and sit down and tell the truth and be heard and feel like we are being heard and get the apology that we need. God, that one's hard. But people deserve that. And when we talk about setting boundaries, we're talking about doing things and trying again. And that's where that resilience comes in, right? It's like, we're not going to give up. And not everyone gets that kind of repair.
True.
And I don't take that lightly, because I know, like, I know how that feels. I didn't get that repair in my family, which is probably why I try so hard to have it in my own.
Yeah.
And so for anyone listening to this that's in the middle of family hurt, I hope you hear this clearly. Repair doesn't mean abandoning yourself. And love does not require you to have no boundaries. And accountability doesn't mean drowning in shame. And distance doesn't always mean that love is gone. Sometimes healing begins with naming it, naming the pattern. And sometimes it begins with one person choosing to listen differently. Maybe that's you. And sometimes it begins when the old bomb has a chance to go off for the first time. And for the first time, it doesn't. So we're here, we're listening. And everybody deserves well.
It's a live show, ladies and gentlemen. There's a cat fight outside, but anyways.
Dude, we're like almost done.
Damn. We almost had it. Go ahead.
I forgot where I was.
You were the healing sometimes begins with naming patterns. So
right. And it's just one of those things too, where it's like, everybody does deserve that healing. We all deserve that healing. And we all deserve that apology. Even if it doesn't come from the person that we want the apology to come from, we can still find that forgiveness. We can also just be fucking mad about it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's true.
We're all about feeling all of our feelings
all
here.
Of our feelings.
There's no toxic positivity here.
Yeah.
We're allowed to be mad. But that's just how it goes. We're allowed to have those things, and we deserve those things.
Yeah. I'm super excited for where we're headed with this. We've given a very good foundation today with family systems and what we've walked through and trying to do like rupture and repair and talking about that. So the upcoming episodes are going to be very involved, building on top of that.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for going deeper in these next upcoming episodes on some of the topics that we kind of briefly just touched on today, with like accountability, boundaries, like all of that kind of stuff. So
questions, comments, they're all welcome.
Yes.
I love feedback.
Yes, absolutely. So make sure.
Just comment.
I was gonna say, make sure also that you're liking this video, share it with your friends. We're gonna be posting up the audio, so if you have anybody who listens to a podcast on the go or anything like that, you will be able to find us over on Spotify, Conversations with Mother. So we hope that y'all enjoyed these. We're calling this one the first episode because the intro episode one. But anyways, so we hope that y'all enjoyed us delving into the family systems today. And I'm going to let you take us out of here.
Thank you guys for coming back to the table with us today. However you love, however you heal. That too. However you love, however you heal. You're welcome here. And from mother's house to yours, be well.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.